is Life Lessons, the Gintama Manga Cast, episode 50. This is the big 5-0. Can't believe I made it this far. You know, I made it this far when no one else thought I would. But to get right onto the show, we are a podcast dedicated to not only talking about Gintama, but also talking about Gintama through the manga, through the Viz Media release, the old Viz Media release, I should say, that was canceled a little while ago. But I thought I'd start a show to basically spread awareness of the manga, because last time I checked, not too many people read the manga. I think that's starting to change nowadays, but that's neither here nor there. Joining me on this episode again, second time in a row, I can't believe it, Doctor! Hey, how's it going, Doctor?
Taking a drink of water so I can actually talk about this. Yeah, I've been in a cage this entire time. Colton has held me hostage, and he's hoping to actually get me on his show as multiple times as he can, because he needs to fill in spots for all of his recordings.
I mean, Doctor, you were so... as I recall in the last episode, you were so bitter about me not having you on enough. Has that subsided for you at all, now that I locked you up in my cage of whatever?
Now I feel I'm overexposed. I think at this point, like, you need to ease back.
I know. I'm really sorry, Doc. I never really, I thought 2 times was okay. I didn't think I was going overboard. I mean, I'm sorry, man.
That's okay. It's okay. I mean, you technically were on our podcast, 6-8 times in a row, because we
has it been that many times already?
Yeah, because
holy shit,
we did like a run of minisodes for the Shogun assassination arc.
Oh no, it was before.
Was it before?
Yeah, it was before.
It was before it. Yes.
Yeah, because Foxy couldn't come on to help you catch up with the anime around that time, and you guys, you wanted me to come on to do some minisodes for like the big batch of anime that you guys just never got around to before the Shogun assassination arc. That was it.
Yeah, so like it was if in case you have not listened to my podcast, you can go over to gintamapodcast.com. It's just a Gintama podcast, the original Gintama podcast. The episodes that we had Colton on here were kind of fun, because we dedicated 10 minutes to every episode. In only 10 minutes.
Yeah, I've never had to like try to condense my thoughts that much before. that was an exercise.
It was great, because by the end of it, I remembered your Twitter handle, because I was like, Colton, how can I find it? You can go to find me at CyberKing323. You like had it you had it down so quickly by the end of it.
Yeah. I think that's what's helped me. That's probably what's helped me try to plug on my stuff a little faster nowadays on my other shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, as for this episode of the podcast, in particular, for episode 50, again, I can't believe I got up to 50. Let's see if I can get to 100. Maybe that'll happen. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It took me 5 years to get to 100, I think.
At the rate I'm going, it's probably going to take me at least 7. But anyway, so we're going to be covering chapter 74 of the manga. Adults only. We wouldn't want anyone immature in here, as the title of the chapter is. Speaking of the chapter title, we're going to be, like always, discussing that in the Life Lessons segment right afterwards. And we're also going to be talking about episode 46 of the anime in the anime manga comparison segment. And we might even have an email at the end of the show. This is something short and sweet, so look forward to that. So, Doc, as is per usual with this show in particular, every time, I guess you're kind of used to this on your show too. Especially. I'm sure you love it when, you guys on Just a Gintama podcast talk about news, or like news of an announcement of news, and you're like, man, I wonder what this could be. And then by the time you put up your podcast, like, the news is already out.
Yes, I think the time of this recording, we speculated in regards to what was announced as like a very important news that was supposed to go out, and I think we talked about it. It's just like, it'd be great if it was this, or it was this, or it was this, and it was this, and we finally says, it's like, it could be this obvious thing, but I was like, but if that was the case, who cares? But anyway,
that would be fun.
Yeah,
we're used to that.
Yeah, so that's why I was like, and by the time the episode was released, the new thing come out. But then again, I'm used to that because usually when we do cover the current manga chapters, usually I release the episode just as a new one is coming out.
Yeah, yeah. In the case of my podcast, I've had this weird thing where like I record like an episode or two at a time, and then I either leave them sitting there unedited because I'm lazy, or I just don't get around to it. And then by the time I get them up, any speculation we have in the beginning of the show is usually irrelevant. That's been happening a lot lately, and that makes me very sad.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm used to it now. But that's why I do my best to try to go as timeless as possible with at least my main show. But yeah.
It's part of the reason why I don't focus on news.
That's the thing. At least with us, we do our best to be a lot more frequent. There are days where we can't do it. Obviously, but at least having a somewhat of an idea as a timetable to release episodes is it at least gets what we need across within a relevant time frame.
Of course. But I do kind of want to talk about a few things real quick, just to kind of put them out there for anyone who just listens to this podcast and not both this and Just a Gintama podcast. Which, if that's the case, you know what's wrong with you. If you're caught up to the manga, you should really be listening to them if you want more current Gintama news. But with that being said, so a lot of stuff happened. The anime is coming back again for a new season. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, we will most likely be covering that on our podcast.
Yep, there you go.
Since we originally were focused on the anime, and now we can focus more on it. There was the Love Potion arc. The first episode that is in the ether. We were hoping for Crunchyroll to pick that up. No luck just yet, but if anything, we'll cover that later.
I would say maybe wait until the second part of that is out, because maybe they're waiting for that second part to come out. You never know.
I kind of most likely think that's the case.
Yeah, I would like Crunchyroll to pick it up because they occasionally pick up OVAs, but it's not something they do too often. But
I point to the fact that they picked up one of the Jump Festa specials.
That's true. This is very true. I forgot about that. So I think it's likely.
Yeah.
So the anime's coming back. When? We don't know. Probably in April, because it usually comes back in April.
The funny thing is, details were supposed to are going to happen like as the weeks go by. So again, by the time this comes out, it probably will be all that information will be out.
Yeah. Probably. It's usually how this happens. And then, I guess just a little bit of like live action movie stuff, because I completely forgot about this. So new casting additions were announced for that live action movie coming up next year. Mm-hmm. And it seems like from what we could tell of the casting, like they pretty much cast all of the Kyotai and then Nizo. So I think we can assume this is going to be a Benizakura retelling. And I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Well, from what they casted Gengai.
They did, yes.
They casted Gengai, which made me assume that they were at least. I figured they had to bring up Takasugi. It would be like a giant misstep if they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, okay, so how far would they go? I could see them, because I feel like the whole stuff with Gengai and the robot stuff, I felt like that's kind of like maybe a half hour in maybe an hour and a half movie, if you want to give or take. And the rest of it, if they did decide to do Benizakura, okay. It's tried and true. We will find many ways for them to make Benizakura again and again. Actually,
the fact that they casted somebody for both Gengai and Takasugi, I wonder if that means maybe like this is going to turn into like DC's animated version of The Killing Joke, where like you have the main story, but they're going to dedicate like a half hour to like some backstory stuff just to kind of like to give people context for what's going on.
Yeah, and then Gengai has sex with Kentoki and
on the roof.
On the roof, and
it's pretty hot.
Sadaharu's there watching.
But no, I could totally see them maybe dedicating a portion of the movie to that whole thing where Gengai is coerced by Takasugi to, run rampant with all his robots at the festival. I think maybe it seems like I think it's likely maybe they'll do that. Hopefully, like I would just like something that isn't a complete Benizakura retelling again, because this will have been the 4th time we've gone through Benizakura.
Yes, it has. 1 to 3. That'd be right. So I'm of two minds. One, I enjoy the story, so it's fine in that end. So I don't mind it. I also think that's, if anything, that gives the opportunity to know, like, okay, so they're gonna have their comedy, they're gonna have their silliness. How are they gonna do this part? I want to see how this works.
Yeah.
If it does well, maybe if they do another movie, maybe they'll cover another arc, whether it be Yoshiwara or maybe like a later one.
Probably, maybe.
Maybe they can set up stuff for the future. Who knows? Like that's what's good about it. I think that's I just want to see how it goes. But
yeah, I don't know. I think I still have hopes in the live action movie. I'm at least looking forward to it, kind of, unlike most anime to live action movies.
I mean, yeah, I've had several different experiences when it comes to adaptations of manga, but I usually end up having a lot more success for dramas.
Yeah,
like actual TV shows than I probably would say movies.
I will say this: I hear people are excited about that new like Battle Angel Alita movie. That could be kind of cool.
Well, that's the Hollywood. That's the James Cameron one, I believe, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the Avatar guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, that sounds like a cool. Like, I mean, if you've ever read Battle Angel Alita, that's a pretty cool manga. Like, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if someone actually does like a remake anime adaptation again, because I feel like now is a good time. The book is basically, I think the book is done. Maybe, I don't know. I have to look it up.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good time as any if you want to actually maybe spark some sort of interest with if once that movie actually starts, going.
Yeah.
That between like the 7th or 8th Avatar sequel. But hey, at least we're getting Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah. Ghost in the Shell's cool, I guess. I don't really care about Ghost in the Shell other than maybe like the first movie personally.
Teasers are out. Go watch, and if you haven't, I would recommend checking out Standalone Complex. It is so deep in just like it is the most talky head series you could possibly get next to Gintama. But they do it's some great stuff in there, like a lot of existential stuff.
Maybe for you, I'll try it again because I remember I was sort of turned off because
it's super dry.
Yeah, but maybe I'll try it again.
I remember falling asleep to it many a time when it was on Toonami and what have you.
Oh boy,
or the late nights era, Adult Swim. That's what I'm thinking of. Same difference at this point.
But anyway, were we talking about Gintama, right?
Yes.
So real quick, last thing I do want to mention out there, because this is pretty important, the fact that Crunchyroll and Funimation are teaming up to bring you more anime and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And it looks like because of this, if I read the Crunchyroll FAQs on this just right, it seems like Funimation is going to be distributing not just, Gintama on DVD or whatnot, but it looks like they're going to be distributing that along with like all the other anime titles they announced that were getting dubs a little while back.
Yes. So essentially what it is that Crunchyroll will be in charge of getting the stuff, like all the properties that they owned. They still own it, like Gintama, Berserk, kind of robbing the Iron Fortress one. I forgot the name, but they'll have a Funimation logo on the corner, and they're the ones that they're the ones that are putting it on the shelves.
Yeah, they're the ones actually putting it out there for sale.
Yeah, that's kind of a normal thing.
I've seen Funimation distribute other stuff before. I think they used to distribute some kind of sci-fi show. Lost Girl. I think that's
Girl,
what that. Yeah.
That's just the thing. That's normal.
Yeah. That's it's not like Funimation's done that kind of thing before. So
yeah. They even say on the FAQs that you could expect Crunchyroll DVDs to be out along with Funimation DVDs. So
interesting.
It's just a nice little convenience for Crunchyroll. It's like, oh, okay, you guys can release our stuff. So like Funimation isn't in charge of anything. It's still Crunchyroll's call for what they're doing with that stuff. So a little bit of like clarification, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, this along with like, a lot of Funimation's subtitle catalog is going to be up on Crunchyroll, and Funimation's going to be dubbing a lot of Crunchyroll shows and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So that'll be cool. I think a little off topic. I think they're dubbing 91 Days because of this too, so that'll be cool.
Good. They'll probably have the relevant accents for most of it. I'm sure it'll sound weird in the beginning.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, there's some kung fu treachery that happens in that show. People should really check that out if you haven't got a chance to.
I'm definitely going to start watching that as soon as it's over because I really like the beginning of that show.
Oh yeah, if there is a visual kind of storytelling that happens on there, because people like that, I guess. They do a very good job with it. The story in general is actually probably one of the best.
But yeah, Funimation and Crunchyroll teaming up to bring you more anime. That's actually kind of an amazing thing, and I'm glad that Gintama in particular is benefiting from this. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's funny. No, this is one that's like, oh, cool. Like,
it's funny because I think at one point I sent you guys an email about the possibility of Crunchyroll or of Gintama being dubbed by Funimation.
Oh yeah, I thought that was like. I think I kind of assumed like that probably won't happen, but I mean, well, I don't know.
Close.
Close, kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of. Technically, the dub's existing. Like the dubs already exist. It's been done in Canada, but I don't think that's necessarily a Funimation joint.
No, I don't think so. So yeah, that's going to be interesting because it seems like a lot of people I know are under the impression that Funimation is dubbing Gintama, which I don't think is the case.
No. I don't think that's the case.
If anything, I think it's very unlikely.
Yeah. I don't know what kind of deals they would get to specifically get people in Canada to actually dub this, to get a Canadian studio to actually do this show. So unless it's something I don't know about enough, but that's me more. Like, just being like, okay, I have an idea normally how they normally function stuff or how they produce stuff. But other than, having private studios or whatever to do your work. And that information's still not even out there either.
So, assuming that whatever, like the dub that they're going to be using is this Canada dub, it's just funny to me that Gintama it's being handled by Crunchyroll, distributed by Funimation, and just dubbed by somebody else. It's just kind of funny how there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen on this one.
Yeah, it is. Maybe it's something that Crunchyroll is probably they're going to be using for their works. They probably have it. Most likely, I'm sure they have a say in what studio does what for their properties. So
yeah.
By the way, cool. It's nice to have Gintama be a part of multitude of different series that will be out there available for everyone to check out.
Yep. And I'm just glad to see this thing in general because I think it can only be I think it can only do good things for the industry in general. So
yeah.
But I think that's about it for all the stuff I wanted to talk about. So let's just get right on to the manga. This is the manga recap for Chapter 74, Adults Only. We wouldn't want anyone immature in here. Great chapter title, I must say. It's pretty funny. So we start the chapter off at Cabaret Smile, the workplace of our dear Otai.
Mm-hmm.
And basically we have Ane, who we'll find out to be Ane, basically in her dressing room talking to the other hostesses about basically sort of a exposition continuation of the last arc we covered on the podcast, the Dog God arc, where Sadaharu went all wild and monstrous on us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember when we covered that? That was fun.
That was a while back.
A little, yeah, actually. But Ane's basically talking to the hostesses about what happened. She's kind of in the middle of explaining her new financial situation, explaining that because of all the shenanigans that happened during that arc, the baseball game of Aliens versus Yakuza was called off. And to basically, Ane and Monet both had to pay off the damages, which sucks. And they had to do that by selling their shrine. And now they pretty much live in an apartment.
Oof.
So that's pretty rough. But so, they just keep going on, and one of them is like, oh, dogs are just like men, I guess, you dump them without a second thought, but they eventually come back to bite you. And Ane points out that, but, dogs are at least smarter. Because, men.
Uh-huh.
Can't live with them.
And that's it.
Yeah, and that's the joke.
Can't live with them.
No, can't live with them. Not in the slightest. I'm a man. I can attest for that. But anyway, while they're in their conversation and getting ready, one of the waiters tells Ane that there's a request for her at table 3, and one of the hostesses says that it must be the master of Kikuya. That old pervert, that one guy that we don't like. And Ane's like, hey, it's just like I said earlier. They always come back, and what's with these guys and like shrine maidens? I mean, guys have these like weird fantasies about women and stuff. First it's like nurses, flight attendants. Like what's with guys and their weird fantasies? Am I right? If only they knew that being a woman meant spending your life battling through piles of crap, which I think is probably one of my favorite lines in the manga, actually, because it's
the most true of life, really.
Pretty much, yeah. I think it's a great line. But Ane's coming out of the dressing room and into the main hall, and is greeting Kikuya, being all cute and stuff. And she runs towards the table, only to find Otai drowning the guy. So that's bad. At least until we find out why in a little bit. But Otai is just like, oh hey, Kikuya, your little Ane's here. Oh boy, this is great. And Ane's like, what are you doing to my customer? Stop drowning him. And Otai's like, oh, I was just filling in for you until you showed up. But then this guy tried to grab my butt. Isn't that rude? And Ane's like, well, he's my main customer, so could you please not kill him? I need money. And Otai's just like, oh, I'm sorry. I mean, he isn't my customer, so I thought it'd be okay. I mean, it doesn't affect me. And Ane's just like, well, just because of that one gorilla guy who's stalking you all the time doesn't mean you have to beat every guy up. And then out of nowhere, Kondo's like, hey, yeah, why are you calling me a gorilla? That's rude. I mean, hey, Otai, are you literally gonna say all those things about me? Kondo popping up out of random places is probably one of my favorite gags. Mm-hmm. And Otai is just like, okay, I mean, if you don't want to hear it, then get out of here. And Kondo's just like, oh, that's not really what I wanted you to say. And Otai rebuttals, hey, actually, in fact, do us all a favor, just get out of everywhere. Get out of all the places. And Kondo's just like, okay, all right, I'm sad now. And basically, while that's going on, Ane's still kind of pissed. Oreo, I believe her name is. I always forget.
Yeah.
The one that the Sakamoto likes. Yeah, I do remember that.
It's supposed to be his wife.
Historically, yeah. Wife, yeah. I think, yeah, I remember talking about that with Nada and how, like, they had an interesting relationship. That was that was really fun to learn. But yeah, Oreo is trying to come up and trying to calm down the situation, and is basically like, "Hey, Ane, come on, you might want to just back off on this one. You know, a lot of the customers are on Otai's side, and you know, maybe he crossed the line, but you know, he keeps trying to turn this place into like an all grope buffet. You know, it's just calm down." And you know, Ane's basically still confronting Otai and is like, "Well, hey, what's the big deal with getting your butt groped anyway? I mean, haven't you ever heard of turning the other cheek?" Which I don't think she's using that right, but okay.
Close. Close, but way off.
Yeah, close, but no cigar. And Otai is like, "Oh, but that's ridiculous. You know, our butt cheeks are vestiges of when we were all angels. You know, they used to be wings." And Oreo's like, that's just not true. That's plain wrong." And Kikuya, still kind of wet, just kind of comes up and is like, "Yes, boobs. I like boobs." And starts grabbing Otai, and then what happens after that, Doc?
Oh, then then Tai grabs him, throws him onto another table, and saying that, "Well, you got it wrong. That they're left over from when they used to be living arsenals. That the boobs are actually just missiles," which I guess is sort of like a Mazinger Z reference.
I think so.
It's
actually,
like
yeah.
breast missiles. If you've ever seen that.
Yeah.
Which Anna was like, "Oh wow, thanks. You just kind of just threw my best customer here." And we got the title page. So
yeah, it's
nice.
Title page. It's a title page of all the hostesses.
It's good to notice that I think only 4 characters maybe have, let's say, a lot more features, or at least a lot more detailed than some of the other characters.
Yeah, I was tweeting about this a little while ago that you like you said, you can literally tell that 4 of these characters are drawn by Srirachi, and then the rest of the girls are definitely drawn by other people. like you could tell in the eyes specifically.
Yes, very much so.
Like there's Otai, there's Ane, there's Oreo, and then there's that one other girl from that one chapter with the cult. I don't remember her name,
right?
But she was a character at one point.
She happened, yes.
But I think it's nicely drawn, though.
No, yeah, it's really nice. Nice to have like it's sort of well, obviously we'll probably end up talking about it later. So the title.
It's sort of a standard title page, but it's again nicely drawn. But anyway, as we continue on with the chapter, we basically cut to Otai and Ane talking to the manager of the Smile Cabaret Club, whatever, and he's talking. He's like, "Hey, look, I'm not running some kind of quote unquote feel up club here, and I'm not running some kind of S&M club here either. You know, if you want to beat up customers, you guys are gonna have to get another job." And which Ane says, "Oh, right on, man." And boss is like, What do you mean by that? Am I wearing love beads or something? Like, what is this?" And Otai's like, "Yeah, tell it like it is." And manager's just like, "Okay, you're just trying to be dumb." And he just keeps going on, and he starts talking to Otai and tells her that, "Yeah, I did ask you to do a little bouncer work here and there on some of our worst customers, but I think you're enjoying this a little too much. Yeah, it's not right." And great wordplay here with Otai saying, "Oh, don't you start talking about my bouncers too." And the guy manager being like, "Hey, stop that! Like, because this is a kids manga. We can't say that."
Yeah, I think it was something a lot more suggestive than the other.
Yeah, definitely a lot more suggestive. I remember watching the anime, and yeah, the editor's notes and everything on that. So. And he starts talking to Ane and is like, "Hey, Ane, I know you need money, but you're getting a little too greedy. A lot of the customers have been complaining about you, about how you throw them away as soon as they're giving you pretty much everything they have in their wallets." Which she replies, I never throw anything away. I recycle. Tell them to come back as soon as they got more money." Which the manager's like, "Okay, that's horrible. Okay." but he starts, telling it like it is, and it's like, hey, listen, you guys are the top girls in our club, and I'd really like to keep you both, but my business is basically going to go to shit, and if you guys can't work together, I'm gonna have to ask one of you two to leave at the end of this month, which is alarming for both Ane and Otai.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the manager proposes that he'll keep the one whoever brings him more sales between now and the end of the month. And apparently, it happens that the last sales day of this month will decide who's going to say. So basically, tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So very short notice, but still. So pretty much after that happens, Ane is on her way home, and she's just kind of thinking about how ridiculous this all is, and just talking about Otai, thinking about Otai, and is like, I'm broke, and I really wanted to try working harder, making more money for me and my sister, but Otai is essentially getting in the way. She's a real pain in the ass. She keeps beating up all my customers. She's never sold as many drinks as I have, but why does everybody like her more? I don't get it. It's like she looks down on me or something.
Well, then what happens to that is just kind of like thinking about it and just saying like, man, it'd be great if I had find a way to get her out of my life. And then Tai actually shows up there in the street. Where she's like apologizing to her, saying like, "Hey, apologizing to Ane, saying like, sorry about the whole thing." She's like, "I feel like it's kind of my fault. We got us into the situation." And Ane immediately is like, "Oh, you're trying to play it cool and stuff. You're trying to act all like, oh, you're awesome. Like you're trying to be all nice and stuff, but you're actually trying to like catch me off her guard. Okay, fine." And then Ane kind of plays along. He's like, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it. We'll just see who does our best tomorrow." So Tai says like, "Oh, just so you know, I'm just gonna withdraw from this competition. I heard about what happened and how you had to sell your shrine and how you're having a hard time right now. And obviously, you have your sister to look after. So I figured, I'm not gonna compete against you. And obviously you work hard, and I can see from all of us that you do your best. So, obviously you deserve this job. And so, good luck for tomorrow." And so Tai walks away. Ane's like not really sure how to feel, but like it's like I don't know why. Like it's the next night. By then, she's like, well, she caught me off guard, and I know I can't really read her at all. But like she's starting to notice that, oh man, I can see why she's obviously popular, because she has a good heart, and she's actually really kind to people. So it's probably why that's the case. So. Anna's like, man, obviously this entire time I'm thinking about money, and really that's not really who I should be. She's.
I'm sorry, but before we go on real quick, I love this image of Ane just with her customers, and her just standing there like with such a blank look on her face.
Oh yeah, she's just like, yeah, I'm here. It's just. And you can look at the panels, and it's just, if you actually look at the table, there's another girl there, so she's kind of just being like.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I actually didn't notice that.
Sort of like being like assistant to whatever. She's just like, oh hey, I'm pouring drinks. Yeah. Whatever. But then who walks in? But Gintoki and Hasegawa. It's like, oh look at that. Hey, how you doing?
Oh, hey, the main character of this manga.
The main characters of this manga, who probably would be the only ones who would be willing to go into a cabaret joint. So, again, already looking around, it's like, yeah, this place looks pretty pricey. And, Hasegawa was like, are you sure we're in the right place? And it's like, okay.
Yeah, I hope this place costs free. That's in my budget.
That's pretty much it, which it's not going to happen.
Nope. Spoiler alert. Yeah, that doesn't happen. So on the next page here, Gin and Ane both see each other, and basically they're like, "Hey, it's you! Oh, it's you!" Essentially, and Ane is basically like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And Gin's like, "Oh, me? I know a guy. I know somebody." Which the waiter asks, "Oh, hey, would you like a girl in particular?" And Gin obviously asks for Otai, and Otai comes up, and she's like, "Oh, Gin, Hasegawa, hey, it's good to see you guys right over here." And Ane's like, Oh, that bitch. And she's just like, she's been calling in her customers this entire time, and what's going on? And while Otai is escorting Gin and Hasegawa, we sort of kind of recap what Otai was telling Ane, saying, "Oh, I know what happened to you, and I feel so bad. You had to sell your shrine. So you have your sister to look after, and I just can't compete with you." And we get this great shot of Otai being like, "Psych, bitch. I don't give a shit about your shrine. I only care about about rebuilding my father's dojo, because apparently that's still important, and it'll totally be important 200 chapters away from now."
Yes.
Won't be the butt of the joke. And Ane is not happy about this, so she runs off the table, whips out her phone, hoping it's not too late to catch up with Otai. And then we cut back to Hasegawa and Gin, who are sitting with their girls of choice. Hasegawa and Oreo are talking, and Oreo's like, "Hi, I'm Oreo. Hey, you've got some cool sunglasses." And Hasegawa's like, "Yeah, hey, you like them? They were expensive. They cost a whole $25." And meanwhile, Gin's just like talking to Otai, and is like, "Okay, so what do we do here? I get to like feel your butt, right?" And Otai rightfully elbows him in the face. And Gin is just like, "Hey, that was a joke. I'm bleeding. I'd rather need a bread dough than grab your butt. It's flat. That's the joke."
You're not helping your case, dude.
Yeah, exactly. And then Otai's just like, "Oh man, you're so turned on that your nose is bleeding." And Gin making the great fourth wall joke of like, "Hey, you do remember what you did like in the last panel, right?" And Otai is just like, "Well, anyway, what do you want to drink? We have Dom Perignon, or however you pronounce it.
Dom Perignon.
Perignon, yeah." And Gin's like, "Okay, we'll just have shochu with water, because I'm assuming that's a little cheaper."
Yeah, more or less. Think of it like a distilled wine, if you want to think of it like that.
Okay, yeah. There's an editor's note a little later on saying how it's like cheap and strong or something.
Yes, yeah. It's I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, it's like above beer, kind of.
Okay,
slightly above beer, but below like hard liquor.
Okay. But essentially, Gin's trying to order a less expensive drink, but Otai's like, "Okay, one Dom Perignon," and Gin's like, "Somebody please send me an interpreter." She doesn't understand what I want, and Hasegawa is kind of thinking back, and he's like, Dom Perignon. That brings back memories of when I used to work for the Bakufu. Hey, guys, remember when I had a job? Those were fun times. I was a government agent. And they'd serve it to at all the elite events, but obviously it's too expensive for Hasegawa nowadays.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I think I'll just stick with beer," as he looks at the menu. And what's on the menu, Doctor?
All right, let me see. I got Dom Perignon, okay, and got Dom Perignon with Dom Perignon.
Okay.
This is beer, but actually it's Dom Perignon.
Sounds good.
The big Dom, actually. Okay.
Oh, that sounds a little too much.
Dom Perignon. Oh yes, yeah, it's just Dom Perignon. Must be Dom Perignon.
Of course.
Let's see. Say it out loud, Dom Perignon.
Okay.
Wait, is that Dom Perignon? And then there's one scratched out here, but it's actually just Dom Perignon.
Okay. Sounds like a lot of options.
Yeah.
Like I don't really know which one to pick.
It's a good amount of options here.
I don't know what would you pick?
I'd probably go with Dom Perignon.
See, I don't know. I would go with the Dom Perignon with the Dom Perignon. I think that sounds like the better option.
It's a little high end for me.
Yeah, I guess so. Or maybe even the big Dom if I just want to get like real shit face.
Yes, yeah, the big Dom. They got have the zombie family. It's just like once the big Doms are mass produced, they'll be like the hit in all the cabaret joints.
But this goes for everybody listening. You should really eat something before you drink so you don't get too drunk.
Yeah, there's not really much here.
So I think maybe I should have something to eat before I drink the big Dom.
Yes,
might be a little too much. But obviously, Gin and Hasegawa are not okay with this because it's all Dom Perignon, and that's the joke.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing, in case you didn't get the joke.
It's the same thing, and obviously it's very overpriced. So obviously, like, Gin and Hasegawa are kind of just like, we gotta get out of here. This place is a ripoff. And, like, Hasegawa's like, no, Atai's cool. She wouldn't do that.
Never.
Yeah. And it's just like, look at this stuff. Like, clearly it's all just Dom Perignon. Then, you know, like, Tai, like, is trying to be all cute. It's like, come on, Gin. Remember that time we had Dom Perignon? That was great. You want to have some again? It'd be fun. It's like, I barely know you. Like, when did we ever have that? And it was what's her name again?
Oreo.
Oreo is asking Hasegawa, like, hey, Dom Perignon would probably go petty flickly with those expensive shades, and like that was a reach of a pun, but okay. I don't even know what that means.
Also, like, compliment me on something other than my glasses, please.
Yes, my glasses are not, like, is that really all I am at this point?
It's not like if I take them off, I'm just going to stop existing.
Yes,
because that's never happened before.
Don't worry about that. Wink. So then at this point they're like kind of just going Dom Perignon, hey Dom Perignon, and at this point they're like, oh no, Gin's like quick, yeah, like, shield your ears, they're clearly using subliminal advertising.
Get out of my head.
And so
I like how they're in the fetal position.
Yeah, just like, please stop. No. And then Tai immediately is like, hey, let's have some 5 Dom Perignons. We want warning something. And the Gin's like, no. And he tries to cover her mouth, and then boom, and like giant roar. And it seems that everyone is excited that, looky here, it's Matsudaira.
Oh no, it's that guy.
Oh my goodness, like, I haven't seen him in forever. And so like Matsudaira is there with Ane. And he's like, oh hey, daddy. That's
God, I'm sorry, that makes me cringe.
That's cringy as hell.
Yep.
Daddy.
Don't.
I'm just like saying, oh, I'm so happy you'll be here. You can make it. You know, I hope I didn't pull you out of a terrible meeting or anything. It's anything that's important. It's like, and then like, Matsudaira is there. It's just, it's not like Edo's gonna collapse anytime soon. Just
that never happens.
That won't happen ever. But Daddy might collapse if you can't see you. Ew. You have a
yeah, Matsudaira's like
old. Your daughter is like her age. Like,
I know.
Or
God.
Maybe a little younger, but still.
You know what the worst part of this is? I'm gonna have to listen to all this when I edit this podcast again.
Yeah, and they were like, oh, Matsudaira is, and obviously like they mentioned how like, oh, this is really bad Atai, like, and how obviously this guy can spend a lot of money drinking. So, and you know, I was like, oh man, it's been so long. So we had Dom Perignon, and like Matsudaira is just like, oh yeah, that stuff, that's basically juice. Don't worry, Daddy's here. So then they're like, hey, let's order some five Dom Perignons now. Let's go. All right. And everyone's like,
yeah, all right.
Yay.
Party. Shots. That's how that song goes, right?
That's about right. It's about
okay,
right.
Yeah, good. I'm glad I nailed it on the first try. I just a quick thing. I really appreciate in the anime all of Norio Wakamoto's sipping sounds.
Oh yeah, that's actually like you can actually hear it. So that's great.
It's they're not even sipping. It sounds like he's playing like cops and robbers, and he's like a cop. And he's playing with his gun like it's amazing. Oh, it's so good. So we turn to the next page, and Matsudaira is he is partying like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He is the life of the party. I want to party with that guy. And Oreo's like, oh man, they're at like five Dom Perignons already. We can't compete with that. And Gin is like, this is a competition. I mean, we can just beat all their Dom Perignons with a shochu and water. And Hasegawa's like, that's not gonna be enough. It's not enough, Gin. And Ane's just looking back at Otai, and she's like, ha, I'm winning. And basically they're all like, Otai, what do we do? And then dum-da-da-dum, Kondo comes to the rescue and he's like, "Hey guys, why do you look so down? You need some Dom Perignon? Okay, I'll order 10 of them." And suddenly Kondo is cool, I guess. I guess. And they even got like a little chart on the next page measuring the sales of both Otai and Ane, and I guess along with everybody else who works at the club.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, they're the main attraction. That's the point of the competition. And Otai apparently took the lead, which surprises Ane. And Kondo's like, I heard the story from all the other girls. Otai, you don't need to hide your problems from me. I've been saving up money for us so we can, for when we get married. And he gives the thumbs up, cliche as hell, and is like, I may not look like it, but I make pretty good money. I mean. Which makes sense, because, he's got a government job, and he is sort of the leader of a police force, so...
Yeah, so technically, he answers to Matsudaira, so...
Yeah, so I'm sure he makes a pretty good wage.
Yeah.
And Kondo's just like, don't worry, I'm here, you never have to worry again, and Otai just looks into Kondo's eyes, and she's like, oh, gorilla? And Kondo's like... Do you still have to call me that? I mean, I'm kind of helping you. You know what? Whatever. I'll take it. And Matsudaira and Kondo kind of stand off, and Matsudaira's like, Kondo, you infant. I guess you're a baby. If you want to show me up, try coming back in 100 years, typical anime lines. And Kondo's like, you know what? Forget you dirty old man. I'm going to be known as the king of the nightlife. I'm going to take you out. And Matsudaira's just like, not even the shogun will take my crown of partying, whatever. 15 more Dom Perignons. And then Kondo's about to order more when Gin and Hasegawa and Oreo are all drinking Dom Perignon in the background, except I think if you look closely enough, like, Oreo's just pouring Dom Perignon on top of her head.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
She's on the job. Come on,
she gets paid to do this.
Yeah.
But anyway, basically, Kondo's about to order more when Otai's just like, okay, we'll order some more, and Kondo's like, hey, is that my wallet? Don't just take my wallet like that. That's not cool. That's my money. I'm trying to help you. And then what happens after that?
Yeah, well then, it's just like, oh, hey, we're here as well. We're having fun with, and this is Hasegawa and Gin are there. It's just like, obviously, all Ed gives, all that money to impress a bar host as well. Your fellow gorillas must be ashamed. And it's obviously, it's like, hey, no, I'm just and why are you drinking our stuff? You're not a part of this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So then they're noticing the chart. It's kind of a race between Tai and Ane. And who's ooh, who's gonna win off? And then it's just then it's back and forth. Oh, Dom Perignon. Okay, Dom Perignon. Dom Perignon between the two Matsudaira and Kondo. And at this point, Gin is I'm not. I don't even. No one's saying anything but Dom Perignon at this point. All right. And then it's they're kind of it's Matsudaira and Kondo are kind of exhausted at this point because they're constantly drinking and huffing and puffing at this point. And Matsudaira's it's not bad, but your wallet's kind of almost drained. It's and Kondo's oh, don't underestimate me. I withdrew all my savings. It's oh crap, I don't have any money.
Wow.
Yeah, it's aha, clearly. You've been hoisted by your own petard. That's not how that phrase works, but okay. It's obviously it's clearly expensive, so obviously a few dozen glasses would pretty much wipe out your savings, and oh god, I don't have any money either. Oh crap.
My wife is gonna kill me.
My wife is gonna kill me. It's oh.
How am I gonna pay child support?
How am I gonna pay for any of this crap at this point? And then Kondo's just turns to Tai hey, look, sorry, I'm kind of out, and Tai's that's okay, it's you're fine, you're doing great, and but hey, how about this? How about you just sell your sword? That way you can get me more money. And like this at this point, like Taya is drunk because obviously they've been drinking all this crap. They figured why not. And then Kanna's like, I can't really sell my sword. I mean, it's supposed to be like, you know, the soul of the warriors and their sword, so obviously it's kind of important. It's like, and Taya's like, oh, it's fine. You can just get another soul. It's cool. And then like Gin's like, yeah, I know. Honestly, it's great. Like, just I got mine secondhand, so that's pretty much what I did. And like, and I like Asagawa, like it's like wait a minute, you didn't get it from a wizard?
That's my favorite thing ever.
And at a certain point,
it's just like I really want to see how that conversation went. Like how does Hasegawa ever believe anything Gin says?
I don't know. Like I was like, I'm sure like he probably would have asked like, hey, how'd you get that sword? Like I'm surprised that you're not using a traditional sword. You're using that thing. And he's like, oh yeah, I found a wizard on the street. And he had his leg broken, so I helped him out, and then he gifted me this.
I would kind of like it more if Gin would be like, hey, you know, I found a wizard on the street, and he was like, here, take my sword. And I'm like, okay,
thanks,
sure.
Wizard.
Just like have it be just totally epic at first, and then just end up being like totally mundane.
It's dangerous to go out alone. Here's the sword.
And I also love how like I love this conversation where Kando's like you said, hey, I can't just sell my sword, like it's kind of a warrior soul or whatever, and Otaya's like, but you can just buy another one. And I love how Gin's basically like, yeah, you know, I bought mine, I don't know why you can't do the same.
Clearly. I like it. Oreo's like there, just like asleep on the couch. She kind of blends in, given her kimono, but you know, it's
actually, I just noticed that. Yeah. She is out at this point.
It's like, where's Waldo on this frame?
Jesus, she really does blend in.
Yeah. So, and then like Tai kind of turns to Hasegawa. It's like, hey, your glasses. And because wait, what? Like, give me, go sell your glasses and buy me a drink. You said they're expensive, right? Yeah, but like, whatever. I mean, and like Tai like punches like at the wall right behind Asagawa, and just like, oh crap. And again, it's like laughing. I was like, that's what you get for acting cool and stuff. When you're actually poor, you're the worst. Haha, you're poor. Look at me.
Look at me, I'm also poor.
So I have nothing to lose. And
which I'm sorry, by the way, like, how much money could Hasegawa actually get back for his glasses? I really don't think that would be enough to... I feel like no matter what amount of money Hasegawa would get back for his glasses, it wouldn't be enough for even a shot at Dom Perignon.
Most likely not.
That's just... Yeah, it's just kind of funny.
Which, like, again, is kind of laughing at Hasegawa, but then Tai is sort of right there. It's like, hey, you go to an ATM. And again, it's like, what? No, you're going to an ATM. You're getting your money from your credit card. Come on.
I love how Tai just assumes that Gin has a credit card.
Yeah, I don't know. And she's like cracking her knuckles, like already muscling this guy to actually get this crap.
It's just kind of funny. But anyway, so on the next page, like basically the three of them, Kondo, Gin, and Hasegawa, all basically leave the bar to assumedly go get some more money.
Well, they're basically getting kicked out because there's some bouncers there.
Actually, that makes a little more sense. But you know, Matsudaira is just looking on, and he's just like, I told you to come back in 100 years. You can't compete with me. You know, if you can't drink as much as I do, you'll never survive in this town. But anyway, my wallet's empty, so hey, Ani, can you get me the bill? And Ani's like, what are you talking about? Your wallet might be empty, but I know your bank account's not. And if you don't go get more money right now, I'm going to rat on you to your wife over the cell phone. That's screwed up.
Oh,
that's
boy.
Blackmail. That's bad.
That's not good.
Which obviously Matsudaira is taken aback by this, and some time passes, and we get to take a look at the chart again, which Ani and Otai are pretty much, it's pretty much a draw, which the manager's like, hey, you both did a great job, I'm gonna keep you both, essentially. You both won, and which, Ane and Otai like look back at each other sort of in annoyance, but then they both kind of smirk at each other like, you know what? Let's work together. You know, that was a great match. Let's both work together for the sake of the club from now on. Let's be sisters. And then we get a shot of Matsudaira, Kondo, Gin, and Hasegawa all in their underwear, just kind of staring off in the distance, with some lyrics appearing over top of them. I guess I'll recite them now. Kabuki Cho, you den of desire, tonight and every night, your story is the same. Acts of love and hate, dreams that fade in an instant, but the men don't care. The poor sad man, woo. Again, the morning sun burns their eyes. Beautiful, I guess.
Yes.
And basically, Gin, I'm assuming Gin is just like, hey, anybody else see these lyrics over us? That's cheesy, right? And Hasegawa's just like, you know what? The guy who writes this manga just is really lame. You guys ever noticed that? That's amazing.
It's ridiculous.
It's the end of the chapter.
Yes, that's the end of the chapter.
I don't know. What did you think about this one, Doc?
It's a fun little silly one-off story. It's nice to have these every once in a while.
Yeah, I thought this was actually pretty funny too. I think a lot of the dialogue in here was pretty great.
Oh yeah,
definitely a lot of lines that made me laugh out loud. I feel like there's not much else to say about the chapter overall other than it was just funny and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it is.
So I wonder if I don't know. I guess I don't know how relevant this is to bring up, but like the fact that that Ane and Mone had to basically sell their shrine, I think heavily implies that they're probably not working as shrine maidens anymore. That they probably most likely have been relieved of their duties to basically like guard over all the dragon holes that we were explained about in the last arc. So I wonder, not to dive too deep into like current manga, but I wonder if that'll have any kind of like implications on the current story. Because like I used to think, and I think a lot of people were kind of hoping, once when the manga, I guess about a year ago at this point, I think, when Shinpachi, was like, oh, hey, Ane and Mone, you guys remember those people, right?
Yeah. And
I think a lot of people were wanting Ane and Mone to come back to like play a part in like the final arc that's going on right now, but I wonder if the beginning of the chapter kind of implies that they're probably not going to be coming back.
I don't know.
Because I feel like that cements any chance of them actually coming back, which, I mean, I could be wrong. Sorachi could prove all of us wrong. You never know. But, like, I feel like even if they did have the opportunity to come back, I feel like Ane and Mone are one of those characters Sorachi writes that, like, it would be nice to see them come back, but I don't feel like there's a ton new that he could really do with the two of them.
No, they're fun characters. Obviously, this is a story that pretty much like ends when you see them. I don't think you ever see them again after this.
Yeah, I think this is the last appearance of either of them. I don't think they ever come back, like like physically come back.
Yeah, I feel like that's a kind of a weird missed opportunity, given that he likes to bring back characters every once in a while.
Yeah.
Just as like cameos, and it happens. Yeah, it's cool. It's one small town, and you can still say like, "Hey, Ane still works at the cabaret place for So there hasn't been much said about it, and I kind of wish they would bring that up every once in a while, but they don't. So we'll just let that go. I don't know. It's one of those like unfortunate things where like you can still have some fun with these characters. They're silly, but if they decided not to go with it, and they figured he's probably, if anything, in this arc they can find a way to bring him back.
Maybe
in the last arc, get like the official last arc of the manga, they can probably find a way to bring him back. Bring both of them back, I should say.
I still see some people every once in a while who are like, you know what? I really want Sadaharu to go beast mode again, and it's, I don't know, maybe that could happen.
They could. They can just BS that. It'd be fun just to like have another like a bigger assist. But then again, like Sadaharu is as effective as he is.
Yeah, he's still he could still damage somebody if he wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, if it's like, oh, here's a giant thing they have to fight, so like, let's get our giant thing. Like,
yeah,
we have a Hulk.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else I really want to. Well, I guess I don't know. What did you? I guess what do you have any particular favorite gag? I guess or favorite line in this chapter at all? Since it's just a gag chapter.
The Dom Perry exchange with the what you call it, the menu. I think that
was pretty good.
That is, I feel like that gag was a lot more effective in the anime, but I think that was like one of my that one I actually did enjoy. I think aside from that, I think the little back and forth between Ane and Tai, I think it was like one of my favorite things because I like Tai when she is this sort of evil villain. It's like it makes me want to believe one day she is the actual last boss of the manga. That's what I hope for one day.
That would be funny. Yeah, I really like that exchange too. Like I said earlier, I really think Ane's line about women and them dealing with all their crap or whatever. Definitely the line word for word. Mm-hmm. Like I said earlier, that's really just one of my favorite of Sorachi's lines, I think, because like we said earlier, there's a lot of truth to that, I think.
Yes.
And then, like I said earlier, just the thought of Gin being like, yeah, I got this from a wizard, and Hasegawa just believing him will never not be funny to me. It's so good.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think that's really about it. Again, like this is one of those things where it's like, yeah, this chapter was really funny. Not much to discuss, though, but that's fine.
That's it. It's one of it's one of the problems you have when reviewing this series is like that was funny, and that's it. That's all we can say.
Yeah, that's it. That's the joke.
Haha.
But yeah, I think I like this chapter overall.
Yeah, it was nice. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So I think that about wraps up this segment. So anyway, guys, if you want to buy this volume or really just, buy the Gintama manga in general, you can go to Viz.com. Viz does this really cool thing where they have particular sections of their website dedicated to, I think all of their particular manga franchises, and they do have one for Gintama now, even though they're not at the time of this recording, they're not. I don't think they're planning on bringing it back, but it's still nice that they have a page for it. So basically, if you guys go to Viz's website, you can find particular postings for specific manga volumes and like which retailers are linked to those particular manga volumes. Basically, like you could like either buy a manga volume from like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and whatnot. Viz Media gives you all those links. So basically just go to viz.com/gin-tama to either look for volume 9 in particular, or just buy the manga from there. Viz is nice enough to give you those things. If you go to the website, for the podcast at gintalifelessons.wordpress.com, for this particular episode of the podcast, we'll have a link for volume 9 if you want to buy that one in particular and read this chapter and read whatever's in this volume. So, and I guess also real quick, if you, unfortunately, as we state on the show every episode, Gintama isn't available digitally, which is a shame because I think, bringing back Gintama for a physical release, I think might be asking too much at this point, probably. But I think it's more of a possibility. I think it's more likely that Viz could at least put up what they brought over for a digital release. I think they could still make some money off of that. So, if you guys want a digital release of Gintama, it's always nice to, every once in a while, even if you don't use Twitter, get an account and go tell Viz Media on Twitter at Viz Media, that's their handle, and just tell them, hey, I would be interested in buying Gintama digitally if that were to happen. So, it's nice to let them know every once in a while that we do want this thing, because they do listen when you tell them that kind of stuff. And I think that's about it. So let's go on to the next segment. This is the life lesson segment for lesson 74. Adults only. We wouldn't want anyone immature in here. So I'll be honest, like, I feel like I don't know specifically like how this relates to the chapter, but I feel like this chapter title in particular could relate to pretty much like all of Gintama in general.
It's a metaphor for the way people perceive the series.
Yeah,
I feel like it's a lot more obvious that it's like in relation to the cabaret bars, because most of the time it is for adults only. Obviously, they're serving alcohol, so I guess that's kind of what they were trying to aim at. It's like obviously since the focus is on a cabaret bar, that's probably what they meant by adults only.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the idea of it's sort of a it's almost like it's like a perfect metaphor for the series in the sense that it's you're gonna be, I mean, like for the show, like you're gonna be dealing with sort of a lot of silly stuff. Yes, I get it, but like, you know, a lot of people here are adults. Like Yin is an adult. Tai is younger.
She's almost an adult, I think.
She's almost an adult. Like, maybe in their eyes, it probably is, but it's sort of like your main hero is an adult. So I think that's maybe, like maybe that's why your people come in from a different perspective for Gin. I don't know. I do like. I feel like that's probably the closest that I can understand what they were trying to go for this title. But like, I mean, a lot of people talk about this as like, like it's a lot. It feels a lot more mature for a shonen manga, like, which I'm like, yeah, but they kind of get away with a lot of stuff that you'd probably still see in shonen stuff. And it's not as like crazy. Like they don't cover like very, very taboo topics. They kind of like put a spotlight on other things, yes, but that's part of the satire. So
yeah, I mean, you know, it's like I think you and I can attest that there are times when we're reading or watching the series, and I'm sure we both had our moments. I know I've had mine where we're just kind of like, how does this run and jump? Is this actually a Shonen Jump thing I'm watching or reading right now? This is weird.
Yeah, but then again, there are other series that I would have like, this is a horror book. Like, what is this doing here in Jump?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it's nice. It's nice to have something different in the magazine. So I think that's kind of what it's aiming for. And there is a little bit of higher thinking that has to go that gets involved in this, because they're talking about like stuff that you'll see later on of just like,
yeah, Gintama is different from other Jump series, especially when it comes to other shonen, in the sense of like, I feel like certain series, because of their audience, because Jump, for all intents and purposes, is meant for younger males between the ages of like maybe I don't know, like 8 and 13, you know, kids to preteens generally. But I mean, obviously, Jump's audience has expanded a lot since a certain point.
Yeah,
and sometimes there are a lot of series in Jump that definitely that are definitely meant for all the women reading it, you know, like this, and you know, at one point Kuroko's Basketball, or really like I guess most sports series that run in Jump.
Mm-hmm.
But that aside, I'm trying to remember what my point I was trying to make. I guess what I'm trying to say is that, like, it's not. I guess it's not, Gintama is definitely not the first series to ever, like, skew the lines of, like, what a shonen manga can and should be. Because, like, I feel like one of the, like this and Death Note, I think, were one of the first, manga in Jump to really make Shueisha, be like, hey, this might not do well in the magazine, but it does sell well with, like, other people. Maybe we should keep it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
That's another good point. Like, hey, Death Note, a very popular series, ran in Jump.
Yeah, very, very, like, I think Death Note in particular has, like, aspects of a Jump manga, but it's not a typical Jump manga.
No,
it's very, very different.
Very different. It's from a very different perspective.
Hell, even I'm rereading a lot of this lately for Manga Mavericks coming up. I'm reading Majin Tante no Agami Nero, which is written and drawn by the guy responsible for Assassination Classroom. This was his first work, and from what I've been revisiting, Nero's definitely also one of those cases where it's like it has aspects of a Jump manga, but it's very odd. It's a lot darker than I think a lot of stuff in Jump. It deals with a lot of very heavy stuff and is generally very odd and out there and weird, but I love that. Nero's a great series. People really should read more of that, especially even if you like, regardless of whether you like or dislike Assassination Classroom, I would highly recommend Nero so much. Definitely one of my favorite mangas.
I did actually watch the anime adaptation of it. I did enjoy it. I would have liked to check out more of it. But
it's funny because a lot of people really don't like the anime for Nero.
It was endearing. I thought, like, I enjoyed the idea of the character, and I wanted to. I think it at least got me into the concept, and like it got me into like, okay, this would be interesting to follow. But I just never got around to it. So if anything, if it leads me to the manga, then cool. But
yeah. Good thing about the manga is that personally, I feel like the art is a lot more well done. Like it's weird, but like as weird as it gets, there's always thought behind the art. I feel like. As to what Matsui, the author, wants to portray, and then also, Nero actually has a complete story. It actually has an ending and wraps things up pretty nicely. But anyway, we're talking about Gintama.
Right.
So, but yeah, point being, I think, I feel like this chapter title can relate to the series as a whole more so than this one particular chapter. But I mean, obviously, like you said, this chapter title does refer to the chapter in the sense of, like Otai and Ane both work at an establishment where you need to be old enough to enter because there's alcohol and a bunch of other things going on, and all that. It's an adult establishment. Kids should not be going there. Yeah,
and I think the comment that you mentioned about like how women are basically have to go through a lot of crap. I feel like that's a very like. That's an idea that I think younger kids don't maybe see.
Yeah.
And that's a very adult statement. Like that's also probably something to look into. Like it's just like, oh yeah, look at it. Like that's something like, yeah. I mean, like people who agree with that understand how it is, and like between catcalling and all kinds of different stuff that women go through, it is sort of like, yeah, they go through some shit sometimes, and it sucks. And hopefully we can organize. We would be able to have a little bit more of a. I don't know. I'm a feminist at heart, so I think it's something that I think it would be beneficial for people to understand a little bit better. And obviously, it is. That's why it makes sense if you're going to think about it like that, you got to be an adult about it. So.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, it's true, and unfortunately, that's just how the world is.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can't help to change it.
Exactly. And so it's just like, don't be immature, guys.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. Gintama, in a way, hopefully teaches kids to be a little more mature, which is funny coming from a manga where you have 6 guys fighting to the death in a bathroom.
Yes.
the series is so beautiful in so many like different ways, and I mean that 100%. But yeah, I think that's about it for the chapter title. I think we can both say it relates to the chapter just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, in more ways than one, generally. But yeah, so guys, if you guys listening have any thoughts on this chapter title, any past titles we've discussed on the podcast before, any titles we have yet to discuss before but we're going to get to eventually, any title that you have any thoughts on and how it maybe relates to you, how you think it relates to Gintama in general, please send us an email with your thoughts over to gintalifelessons@gmail.com. We would really love to hear your thoughts on some of this stuff. So with that out of the way, let's move on to the next thing. This is the anime manga comparison segment for episode 46 of the anime. Not much to discuss with this one. It's pretty straightforward. I guess it's like a few things I felt the need to maybe point out here and there. Like me and Doc discussed on the last episode, covering the Dog God arc, this episode in particular starts off with Umibozu's letter to Kagura. As in the manga, that's how that arc started off. But I guess for like we discussed last time, for the sake of cutting time and being able to fit that entire arc into one episode, I guess they felt the need to be like, okay, hey, let's just put that in this episode. Which again, like we discussed, putting this in like the context of the anime, basically. It like implies that like, oh, Umibozu sent his Kagura got his letter after all that happened, so thanks, Dad. Whereas obviously in the manga originally that was something that Umibozu was trying to warn Kagura of in the first chapter, which eventually circled around, which I thought was nicely done. But I think it works here too, because that scene ends with Kagura being like, "I'm never gonna stop loving Sadaharu. Yeah. Look at how cute Sadaharu and I are. We're melting your hearts."
Yeah, I do like the. They did a whole changeover where instead of it being like Darth Vader, it's Char from from Mobile Suit Gundam, and I do appreciate Sugida's impression of Shuichi Ikeda, the voice of Char.
Oh, was that actually him?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't Shuichi Ikeda. It was Sugita impersonating Shuichi Ikeda.
No, I know. That was Sugita trying to impersonate that actor. I didn't catch that.
That's like it's very specific. It's a very specific tone. I think if you want another bit of relevance, Shanks in One Piece,
or even Kite from Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah.
The 2011 version.
Exactly. But like the guy has a very distinct voice. Like,
yes.
So it's that and Toru Furuya, the voice of Amuro. He can also do his impression of him. He's done it a bunch of times in other stuff, but it's always funny to hear. But like you can kind of tell he was trying to go for that sort of tone, so it was nice little touch if you actually were paying attention.
Man, I didn't catch that. That's really cool. I didn't think Sugita had any other like voice actor impressions or other than Norio Wakamoto.
Norio Wakamoto, Toru Furuya is his best one. It is spot on. Because he has his cadence down so well.
Oh wow!
You just look up like him doing it for. I think they were in Tokyo Encounter. They had him do. Well, he was doing the voice of Seiya for the Saint Seiya.
Oh, okay.
They were playing a video game, and he was just like reading the lines as Toru Furuya, which is great.
Oh wow, that's great. I'll have to look that up later. Maybe even put it in the show notes if people want to take a look at that. If we can find that,
if I can find it, I'll have to look for it.
Yeah, we'll have to look for it. If it's not in there, sorry. Other than that, like like I said, the episode's played pretty straightforwardly, except I don't know how you feel about this episode, but I feel like there are some still shots in this episode that look just as bad as episode 43 did.
It's a little, the animation's a little wonky at times.
Yeah.
There were moments of like, oh, they ripped the manga from the panel and put it on there.
See, it's funny you say that, because I would actually argue that the manga was drawn better in this case, which is not something I usually say.
I didn't say the entire thing. I said like like small points. I think Tai throwing the guy at the very beginning of the episode, like with the way when she kind of like claps her hand there. Dusts off herself like that. There was like that specific shot is like spot on.
No, yeah. I agree.
But after that, like, then it's a little dodgy. Like, I can't say I enjoy some of it. A half of it was like Nori Wakamoto's just like like him verbally drinking is fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. I
think the only other things I can remember from this episode that I liked, nice. It's a nice touch. When you did those lyrics at the very end, they actually do have someone singing that at the end of the episode.
Yeah, that's actually like an image song, or that's a song that's a part of one of the soundtracks.
Yes, yeah, it's a nice little like, oh, look at that. They actually like that's a little extra bit of dedication that that they have for the series. It's like even in moments like this, even with episodes like this, I should say, that it's like, oh, it's back and forth, and it's like, this part didn't work that well. They kind of they took some maybe like shortcuts in this part, but then there's like little things like that where it's just like that they got it. They nailed that moment. Just having the song play, you can hear it in the background, and then the lyrics actually appear on screen, and it's just like, okay, That's great.
Yeah, so while this episode is definitely not the best looking episode of the show by any stretch of the imagination, I mean, it still adapted the material well enough, as well as it could, honestly, and I do agree. I like that they went out of their way to actually like. They actually went out of their way to make that last bit of the episode and took those lyrics and actually turned them into a song that you could listen to.
Right.
Yeah. I think the only other thing that they added for this episode was in between, like, the commercial break bits of the episode, like, they had a Ginpachi Sensei thing where basically the show teaches you how to draw Gin and Shinpachi and Kagura.
Yes, the Let's Shinpachi.
Yes, Let's Shinpachi. Which I meant to look this up. I know a lot of these Ginpachi Sensei things I know are basically the anime staff takes questions that Sorachi answers in the manga volumes, and they use them as bits, like a little omake in the anime. But So I forget which volume this is in, but I know this bit was in a volume of the manga. I just forget which one.
It was, I think, in the previous volume, or maybe earlier.
It's in the first 9 volumes, definitely. It might have been in volume 8 or 7, but
because I think I remember looking at it as at the answer at one point or another while we were talking. I don't know if it was this episode or a previous episode you had me on, but I remember talking about it. I remember seeing it. Yeah,
I remember seeing it too, but yeah, so that's a cute little thing. But yeah, I think that's about it for the episode. I mean, I don't know. I guess, Doc, if you had to choose for this episode in particular, which do you think, in terms of just this material specifically, which do you think you prefer this time around? Do you think you like the anime or the manga more?
I feel like the manga has a like a little more of an edge for the stuff. I feel like it feels a lot more concise. It's an easier through line between the whole thing. The anime is nice. I enjoy it because it's mainly the voice cast again. But
yes.
But I mean, the episode I mean, like the only major highlight is Nori Wakamoto as Matsudaira.
Yeah.
But after that, it's like it's okay. It's fine. So yeah, I'll probably go with the manga on this one.
Yeah, I think I will too. Like I said before, I definitely think this is one of the few cases where I will say that I think where I think the manga is drawn a lot better. I mean, there are some faraway shots that are a bit scribbly, but that's just because of the perspective and everything, and those aren't meant to look good.
Yeah, and again, like even the way characters are drawn,
especially Oreo,
and like even Kondo. I think that was like one of the ones where like he looks different, but then it's like you look at the manga and it's like he feels a little off, or maybe it's. But again, it's like probably one of the early. It's the early manga where they kind of were trying to find how he was going to look for throughout the rest of the series. So it's amazing watching. I should say reading the older manga and seeing how people look, what people look like prior to then, and how they actually look now. It's a change, but it's a subtle change.
Actually, now that I'm looking at the manga right now, because I was kind of taking screen caps earlier to kind of take note of those while I was watching the episode, which I'll have on the in the show notes for people to have kind of a visual cue to go along with this, just to get an idea of how derpy some of the episode looks. But I'm looking at two particular panels of Kondo in the manga, and now that I think about it, I'm starting to agree with you more that yeah, there are definitely some shots in the anime that are pretty much just drawn almost exactly like the manga, except the one where Kondo's pointing at the waiter and he's like 10 Dom Perignons or whatever, is whereas in the manga it looks a lot better in the manga, because I think in the anime, this will be one of the screen caps too, I think his eyes are a little too slightly, like they're not low, his pupils aren't low enough. So it looks very weird. Like when I was watching the episode, that actually kind of scared the shit out of me. It was kind of creepy. Yeah, just little details like that I think weren't really handled the best. But again, like, Gintama isn't really supposed to, like, it doesn't really need to look all that great, but like there's every once in a while there is, or very rarely honestly, there's that one episode that like looks a little more off than it really should.
Yeah, there are a few,
but those thankfully are very few and far between, because like even if the show is kind of limited in animation, at least it always looks consistent. Usually, most of the time, like I want to say like 90% of the time it looks pretty consistent. I don't know if that's being generous. I don't know. That's just me personally.
That's fair.
But yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with the manga on this one too. Which is not something I usually do. I don't usually go with the manga on some of these. Because usually, I mean, the whole point of the segment is that I want to talk about the manga, but there's no way we could talk about Gintama without talking about the anime, because the anime is a great adaptation of its source material overall.
Yeah.
And I started this segment also because I want to see just how much I agree that, oh yeah, the anime is always better, which, as I've learned through 50 episodes of this podcast, is not entirely the case, but
no, it'll probably change as the episodes go by.
Yeah, exactly.
The later materials, you could probably argue probably the anime more than anything else.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like the farther I go down with the anime, I'm probably gonna be like, oh my god, the anime was so good this time. Yeah, the manga was pretty much shit compared to this. I don't know. Only time will tell. But I think that's about it for the segment. Before we go, as always, the show is available on Crunchyroll. Please go watch it. Please go watch it on Crunchyroll in particular, because when you do, you're giving back to the people who actually, are paid to make this stuff. You're giving back to the industry, as opposed to other sites that I will not name. But you can either watch it for free or get a subscription. subscription to Crunchyroll is usually, it's like $6.95, close to $7, and it's pretty worth it. If you watch a lot of anime, Crunchyroll is a really worthwhile service, especially if like Hulu's taken down a lot of their anime lately, and Netflix always has a pretty shitty catalog in the first place. So if you're tired of both of those, come to Crunchyroll. They got a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. And they're adding more
now because of the Funimation deal.
Oh, yeah. Like, eventually, Crunchyroll is going to have a shit ton of stuff. I'm definitely waiting for a few particular titles to come on the catalog at some point. But, it's a slow burn. It's going to take time. But, and I think other than that, obviously when this episode is eventually available on DVD and Blu-ray, please go buy those. Keep an eye out for those. I'm definitely going to be buying those, and I know Doc probably will be.
Yes.
Or, if you really can't wait and you really want to own this on DVD, I think you could still buy the Sentai DVDs if you really wanted to. I'm pretty sure those are still kind of in print, but I would suggest waiting for the Crunchyroll DVDs because they also have a dub, if you're into English dubs.
Yeah, or in general, they're probably going to be in a better release later on.
But yeah, I think that's about it for this segment, and we'll move on to the next thing. So, I guess real quickly before we actually end the show, I did kind of put out the call for feedback, and unfortunately we didn't get any, but, that's just kind of par for the course for the show. We got all that feedback one time for the 3rd anniversary show, and then never again, so, God, did you see that, by the way? We got so much feedback just because of Recon being on that we had to, split the episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
I think that part of the show actually ended up being pretty long, because not only did we get a lot of feedback, but me and Recon talked a lot about a lot of different things. It was fun. I don't know if I ever want that much feedback again, but I mean, like we said, you can always shoot us a line over at gettolifelessons@gmail.com, or there's always Twitter, and occasionally it's probably also my fault because I don't put up enough Reddit threads lately. I need to start doing those more.
I need to do it in general. I haven't had a chance to do all that stuff.
But, our lines are always open. If you want to send us your thoughts on whatever, we'll read pretty much whatever. Even if you hate the show, we'll read that. I don't care if your criticism isn't constructive or not. I'll still read it.
The lines are open. Stalin 305.
Yeah. Something or other.
555.
Yeah, 888-8888.
8888. 954-324-7722. Call in now.
Yes, do that, because you totally have a number. So, we got an email here from, actually, we got this one a little while back, and I haven't really gotten the chance to read this, from Mr. Oguz. I'm assuming that's his real name. I don't know if that's an internet alias or not.
Please, Mr. Oguz was my father.
But he or she writes in about how basically they. I should also put out there ahead of time that this is an email from somebody whose native language isn't really English, so I'm probably gonna editorialize just a little bit. But basically. He or she talks about how they started listening to the podcast a little while ago, and they just want to say that we're doing a great job. So that's good.
Awesome.
And they apologize for the English. Don't worry about it. I'll help you out. They also say that they didn't start watching Gintama yet. It looks like. I don't know why you're listening to this then, but they will. And apparently. They have some critiques of the website, calling it amateur, which that's totally fair, honestly, because I use WordPress because I'm too lazy to make my own website. Actually, I kind of hope one day I can maybe just open up a Squarespace when I can finally afford it. That would be nice, because I hear Squarespace is a really easy to use service. Great for dumb people like me who don't really know how to make their own websites. And then they put out there that apparently they're a web developer, so I'm guessing they're trying to shill here. Which, hey, I mean, if you want to help, I can't pay you, but if you want to give me any tips, sure, I'm open to suggestions. Again, we're open to critiques, and they like listening to us, and he or she wants us to say hi to Nada because she is also very funny.
Oh, awesome.
Which I'm glad. I'm glad people like having Nada on the show. I should probably have her on again at some point. She's great because I know next to nothing about a lot of the historical significance behind Gintama. What with all the characters being based on actual historical figures that actually lived in a little while back, during like feudal Japan times and whatnot. And they say keep doing a great job. Also, can you add some notes on your website about when your next podcast will be published? Have a nice day. I would love to, but the thing is, I feel really bad because when I first started the podcast, like the schedule I had in mind was I want to try to do something bi-weekly, because if I tried to do something weekly, especially with how long the podcast can go nowadays, I would probably shoot myself.
Yeah.
It's because Wait, what were you going to say?
I've had that same problem, and it's just scheduling. Sometimes it's like with most of us, we get lucky when we have free time.
Yep.
So that's usually the reason why when I have to release an episode, I do my best to try to keep in that 2 week. In that 2 week window, it may end up going over. It may go in all the way to the next month sometimes, but yeah, it's sometimes difficult when you have like a full-time job and you have to take care of that, and personal life and stuff like that, and technically other podcasts we should have been recording as well. Yep. Colton.
Yeah, we'll talk about that after the show.
Yeah, but yeah, it's difficult at times, and obviously it is between the two of us, we both manage one-man operations, so it's on us to get that stuff out there. So like, it's great that people listen to either of our shows, especially this one too. But it's like, hey, it is a little difficult. It is a little tough to do at times, and yeah, it does take a little bit of time management.
Yeah, so like. My experience with the podcast is a little weird because I like when I first started podcasting, I was very ambitious when I first started. And not only did I start this show, we probably mentioned it like a long time ago, when like I was first starting out, and I still recorded with a lot of like my actual friends, my friends that I don't talk to online, that I actually like used to go to high school with and all that. But I started this show, and I also started something called Another Day, Another Adventure, where I would get a completely different group of my friends together, and we would talk about the Dragon Ball manga, a chapter per episode, which I'm starting to realize was a dumb idea.
Yeah.
Because that manga is literally like 500 chapters long or something. We did it for like a year, but then it's really funny because on the last actual episode we recorded, I made all these promises about how like, man, I'm going to put out an episode every week, and we're going to record a lot more often. And then that never happened. So like I started 2 shows, and I started 2 shows while I had like my first part-time job. And I was working a little bit more at that first job, but yeah, like, so like, for a while I was able to, do this pretty regularly, because even if I had like 2 different shows that I was editing and doing myself, and I was still able to put out this podcast like twice a week. And then like, I'll be honest, I'm still kind of in that phase of my life where I'm still kind of trying to get my life together a little bit. Like, I still live with my family, and I'm hoping maybe one day I can not do that anymore. That would be nice. As much as I love my family, I'd like to maybe start living on my own at some point, and I'm just now kind of trying to get around to maybe trying to do that now. So, like at some point oh man, like there was a point where like it was a little hard to do this podcast bi-weekly because like, eventually I lost my first job and I spent probably about a year trying to find another job, but because I couldn't find another job, I would have to fall back on like, going out of town and working with my extended family and working in carnivals and shit, which, boy, let me tell you, that's not a job. That's a fucking lifestyle. It's hard. Like it really takes a lot out of me, honestly. Jesus. I really commend those people for living that kind of life, honestly, throughout the year, 90% of the year. But whenever I had to, obviously when I go out of town, like I can't record anything. I'm not bringing any of my recording equipment because I'm not even going to have any internet, let alone any time to like edit anything. So like there would be times where like I would have to take breaks from the podcast. I'd have to take breaks from, recording One Podcast Prevails, the other show you and me do, Doc. And, but I mean, with even with all that, I still tried to make sure that like I recorded like an episode or two ahead of time so I could release that while I'm gone. And, cause like I feel bad about, I used to feel bad about, just going out and, I need to make money. I need to make some kind of money, some kind of spending money. But, I felt bad about leaving people high and dry who actually like listening to this podcast, which it still kind of blows my mind that there are people that actually like listening to this show. But yeah, like I know I'm kind of rambling on at this point, but like the point I'm getting to is that like it's gotten to that point now where like I'm a little better about trying to keep the podcast a little more I guess frequent, a little more consistent. But actually, also the thing was that I was trying to get to earlier was that around the time I was, doing my job searching, I had to kind of make that choice between, well, do I want to put podcasts a little on the back burner and maybe spend more time looking for a job? And I kind of had to make that choice to be like, okay, Life Lessons is only coming out like once a month because I can't dedicate so much time every other week to editing stuff. Because it's Doc, I'm sure you can attest to this, especially with as many podcasts as you have your feet in. Or I guess whatever body part you have your podcast in.
Yes.
You put a lot of work into, editing your own stuff.
Yeah.
And you yourself have a lot more podcasts that like you run yourself than I do. Like realistically, like I only run this and then maybe Manga Mavericks all by myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I do it either.
I kind of respect that about you, honestly. If I had to edit another show myself, again, I wouldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
I think that's the thing. Most of the time, I've basically kind of understood what I needed to do to get an episode out as quick as possible. So between the 3-4 shows I would probably technically be in charge of, I think one podcast reveals is probably the easiest, because it is sort of like, okay, what do I have to cut? Maybe a cough or two, and that's about it.
Or 3 billion.
Or 3 billion, whichever works. And that's it. And then it's just like upload. And I guess the same with Gintama, with the Gintama podcast. That's because most of the time is, okay, when do we talk about, at what point in the audio do we talk about the news? What point do we talk about manga?
Yeah.
And then from there, it's like, okay, music here. Make sure everything's leveled. Make sure everything sounds good. Okay, ending song upload done.
Yeah, I do a lot of that too, except when I edit a podcast, I actually go and I listen to the conversation, because there are times where like I'll be trying to make a point and I'll keep repeating myself, and I have my god awful stutter every once in a while, and then I'll be like I'm pretty much going through my podcast trying to make sure like, okay, when do I start repeating myself? Because when I start doing that, and if I start doing it too much, or I feel like, we're making a very redundant point that we already make and that maybe the audience will have gotten at that point, I usually try to do my best to take that kind of stuff out. But essentially, I try to do my best to actually, like, I kind of edit the conversation, but not to the point where I compromise it. I edit it to the point where like I want to keep the conversation flowing. I kind of want to keep it on one track, though. I do that, but also at the same time, like I try not to do that too much. Otherwise, I compromise the entire discussion.
Yeah, I think I've tried to find a good balance of like, okay, here's a flow, here's how it's gonna work, and does my comment pick up better here? Like, if I go from here to there, does that work? Can I edit around this like explosion that happens on the other end?
Yeah.
Shit like that. So
yeah, essentially. But honestly, like with all that being said, like point being, honestly, the problem with me in particular is that like, because I'm in that phase of my life where I'm still young, I'm young and hip and I'm never going to die, obviously. But in all seriousness, I am in that phase of my life where like I need to kind of start figuring stuff out, and I need to kind of think about, hey, what do I really want to do with my life? Not that I'm going to stop podcasting anytime soon, but like I need to make things work. I guess like I kind of want to work around my podcasts in a way where like I could still do them, but like I won't be able to do them as frequently as I would like to. Mm-hmm. And even then, like I've gotten so used to like putting out an episode of Life Lessons every month to the point where I'm like, you know what? I like not having to edit as much. I'm just going to keep doing this. Fuck bi-weekly schedules, honestly. But I mean, at this point, I want to make sure that I put out an episode at least every month. At the very least, I think that's as much as I think I kind of owe my listeners, to the people who actually like listening to this. But honestly, like so with that being said, I can't really do anything about like I can't like put a counter on the website because like I don't like giving myself hard deadlines, because when I give myself a hard deadline for something, I automatically procrastinate, and it's like, I do that a lot, and it's the worst. It's a bad habit of mine, which is another reason why I sometimes am a little late on editing and putting up podcasts. The best way for you to, and this goes for everyone listening, the best way for people to get updated on, when the podcast is coming out, if you're actually interested and you want to listen, and you're actually like, hey, when's this guy going to put up more stuff? Even if you don't have a Twitter, get a Twitter and follow the Life Lessons Twitter page or whatever. Cause I update people there pretty frequently. I'm pretty upfront about when I want to put an episode out and when I'm editing. You could follow that and follow, my personal Twitter page at SniperKing323. Sometimes I talk about, my editing escapades and how much I hate it and everything. So really, Twitter is your best option. Like those are pretty much like the quickest updates I can offer. And I think that's really about it. Like I try my best, but to all of you who are actually patient enough to wait for this dumb thing that I do, I really appreciate it, and I appreciate that there are people that actually enjoy this thing. So. Mm. But anyway, I think that's about it for that email. So thank you, Ogus, for sending in that email. And if you want to be like Ogus and send in an email and talk about how much you like the podcast or hate it, or if you have any thoughts on Gintama, send us an email over at gintalifelessons@gmail.com. If you don't like emails, you want to send us feedback some other place, stay tuned for the end of the show. We'll talk about that in just a second. So that's pretty much the end of the podcast. I think I almost made my throat completely dry from all the talking I did. Yay! Wow, I did a lot of talking. This is what I don't know. This is what happens when I have my own podcast. I just never shut up.
That's usually how they do that.
Yeah, that's usually how podcasts work. So, this was episode 50 of Life Lessons, the Gintama Manga cast. We covered chapter 74 of the manga, and we also talked about the chapter title in the Life Lessons segment, Adults Only. We wouldn't want anyone immature in here. And we also talked about episode 46 in the Anime Manga Comparison segment. So, Doc, thank you so much for helping me with the show again. I appreciate it.
Preach. Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, next episode won't have Doctor.
Oh, thank God.
But that is only because I actually already have it recorded.
Yes.
I know, right? I know I'm probably giving away all the podcasting magic, but I actually I recorded an episode a little while ago covering the next chapter of the manga, chapter 75, with Jess, otherwise known as JessReviews on YouTube. I might have mentioned her on the show once or twice. A little, we both of us, along with King Recon and new Twitter friend Donna, who I'm sure is listening to this, we all basically did a live stream a little while ago on YouTube through her channel, talking about Gintama, specifically, the current state of the manga, which is pretty long, but it was still fun.
State of it, God.
Pretty much, yeah.
After a while, it was just like, people are just saying chapter numbers, and I'm like, I don't know if I care enough at this point.
If it makes you feel any better, I get kind of lost when, because I know Recon. Recon is pretty funny because when he remembers a moment, he remembers every chapter number and all that, and I'm like, I remember some stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm 29, and I have so many other things to care about. I love Gintama. I love Detective Conan. For the life of me, I will forget everyone's name in the chapter I'm reading it.
Oh my god, I'm probably one of the few people who, when I listen to Just a Gintama podcast, I'm just like, Doctor, it's this guy! I know you can't hear me, but it's this guy! Why won't you do the thing?
I usually get it by the end of it somehow.
I know.
I like what's great about it is like, okay, you didn't know, but I edited out the part where I literally stopped the show, looked it up, and then...
Can I ask, was it... people won't know who this is if you're not caught up, but was it around the point where you thought that one guy was Jirocho?
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. Oh man,
Jirocho,
that was great.
That was it.
So there was a whole thing that you edited out, huh?
No, it was just like a probably a minute of silence before I looked at it, and then I.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, I remember that. That was pretty funny.
I was waiting for someone else to say it, and then I think there was a good moment. Like, oh, I think everyone's like, oh yeah, that guy, and then it's like, where the fuck is it? And and then I literally went Parako. There it is. Okay, and then I casually Jirocho. Yeah, there you go.
I feel like I'm kind of in the middle where I feel like I'm a lot better at remembering character names for sure, but if I could kind of remember episode numbers, but that's because I watch more of the anime than I read the manga. If you were to tell me, oh hey, you remember that chapter 359, I'd be like,
I don't know.
I don't know. Can you tell me?
What was the arc? What was the story? I'll remember. I remember stories. I remember those.
I remember story arc names. Those are a little easier.
Not even story. I mean, I remember the single episode stuff. Those are fun. If you give me something I can kind of more or less recreate it in my head. But if you tell me specifically episode number, chapter titles, I will forget those things.
Oh boy.
It's very rare do I have, because I would have to either write it down somewhere or something. Again, I have way more stuff in here I'm putting to my head that I have registered for so many other things. I have too many interests that I cannot. I cannot. Something has to go out for it to come back in.
Yep.
Hey, some people have a better mind for that. I don't, unfortunately.
I feel like I might have a slightly better memory of Gintama, but again,
dude, I have forgotten Takasugi's name way more often than I think I remember. I should be allowed to.
Oh boy. But I guess. What was the point I was trying to make? Oh yeah, so I'm having JessReviews on next episode. I mean, that's already been recorded, so hopefully I can get that out a little sooner after I get this episode out. And then I guess since I already have that recorded, I don't know if I don't remember if I talk about it in that episode, but I think I talked to you about this. I think for the episode after that, which is the Kick the Can chapter, for people who remember that.
Oh, wow.
I think I want to have both you and Josh on for that one.
Okay.
Because I know Josh mentioned specifically when we talked to him about the first season of the anime that I remember he really liked that episode. So I figured that'd be a good episode to finally have him back on, because I haven't had him on since that special. So I don't have him on as much as you think. But anyway, so we should probably end the show right now. So that's what we're doing, right?
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, so that's basically what you can look forward to in the next few episomes. What we're doing after that, I haven't planned those yet, but only time will tell. Yeah. So Doc, again, thank you for coming on. Go ahead and plug your stuff.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at SSAA Podcast, which that is the Ass Backwards Anime Podcast, which I'm in charge of. I help maintain, run, whatever the hell you want to do. New episode, I think by the time this is out, I hope to have another episode out. Josh was on our previous episode, but I will be having our good buddy Ed the Crimson on our show. We're talking about the end of Bleach. In a very weird, different way, very unique way, I should say, how we actually go about talking about that. A very dumb idea that I had, and that's what's great about my show is I usually have very dumb ideas, and I'm like, okay, let's have a mic and let's try it out. So if you listen to our podcast, we can either have a very, very, very nice and actually well thought out discussion about critiquing an anime, and then the rest of it is me actually guessing what the hell happened in Bleach. So you can listen to that episode, and you can find it over at ssaapodcast.com, which we're on iTunes and on Stitcher and Google Play. We're the Ass Backwards Anime Podcast, the best kept secret on the internet. And obviously we've talked about Gintama. If you have not checked out my show regarding Gintama, just a Gintama podcast over at gintamapodcast.com. All the recent stuff relating to the manga and soon to be the anime. Once that returns, we'll be covering that as often as we can. Like every other week, we'll be releasing episodes, so it'll be like small chunks of chapters, and obviously by the time the anime comes out, anime episodes along with it. So good stuff. Listen to that, and the podcast that we both are in charge of, One Podcast Prevails, onepodcastprevails.com, which is a Detective Conan retrospective, kind of similar to how Colton does the Here Life Lessons. We do that with Detective Conan, or Case Closed, as these releases are out. So we still haven't made it to the double digits in volumes.
I think we're getting close.
I think we're getting close to it. So once that is, we'll talk about that off mic.
Yep.
And so yeah, listen to that. A very nice show. It's very different from the other podcasts I also run. So it's a very unique voices that you hear throughout all of the 3 shows that I am in charge of.
Yep.
I do have a Tokusatsu podcast called Ready Startup Change, but I haven't released an episode in a while, mainly because I haven't been watching much Tokusatsu. Unless you want to talk about, like, hey, let's talk about British Bake Off. I could probably talk about that. Let's talk about Chops.
Is that Tokusatsu, I guess?
No, that's something that me and my girlfriend are watching mainly. Yeah. So,
can you and your girlfriend please watch those and just do an episode of Ready Startup Change, and then everybody be like, what is this?
Oh, let's talk about British Bake Off. Like, yeah, sure. What the fuck? Mary Berry's leaving? Come on, are you kidding me? She's like the heart of the goddamn show.
And then everybody will be like,
the people who got that. I don't understand the pain. Like,
and then everybody who listens will be like, aren't you going to talk about Kamen Rider Ghost? That was a thing. And they'll be like, this thing's more important.
To be fair, Kamen Rider Ghost is kind of but hopefully
that's what I hear. Yeah, or maybe Gaim.
I think we already talked about Gaim. We had.
Did you? Okay. Yeah. Yes, I still need to watch that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
But I guess is that about it?
That's pretty much it. Yeah, but follow me on Twitter at SSAA Podcast.
Yes, please do that, and go listen to all of Doctor's other shows. He's got quite the expansive catalog of shows. all again, like we discussed earlier, a lot of which he does himself.
Yeah, so it's something that I don't recommend people doing.
Yeah, unless you're, yeah, it's. I can kind of speak on that front, though. Again, I don't run nearly as many shows by myself as you do. Still,
yeah.
I actually actively try to keep a limit on that kind of stuff. But anyway, so speaking of my stuff, I mean, Doc already mentioned One Podcast Prevails. Please go listen to that if you're a fan of Detective Conan / Case Closed. I really have a lot of fun recording that.
Oh yeah, that's very much what I really do enjoy doing those episodes with you, Colton. So it's always refreshing to have just like here's a fun little story. It's like, oh, this is great. I'm really enjoying like doing this like thing, and people are listening to it, which is amazing. And so it's nice to know.
I know, right?
I'm getting feedback on Facebook. I'm just like, wow, really?
Yeah. It only took like 5-6 years, I think.
Yes, technically.
But there's that, and I guess there's the Heavenly Kings podcast. If you guys are a fan of Toriko, of that manga series, that one is definitely not as consistent as we would like. But we still try. We still try and record those every couple of months. The thing about that series, real quick, is that there's like a lot of that series is a lot of action. So we purposely kind of let a lot of that build up. Otherwise, there wouldn't be much for us to talk about. But, again, that's Heavenly Kings at heavenlykings.com if you like Toriko. And I guess the last thing I want to plug real quick is Manga Mavericks. I record a show called Manga Mavericks over on allcomic.com with my good friend Sid, who I've had on Life Lessons before. We record that, actually, probably one of my most consistent shows. We record that and release an episode of that every 2 weeks, talking about manga news. Basically, we cover manga as not only as an interest, but as an industry. So we talk about a lot of manga news, what we're reading. If you're a fan of manga and you want to keep up with some news of the manga industry, please go listen to that. And I guess real quick, we were kind of talking about one of my favorite manga series, Nero, earlier. I mean, by the time this comes out, it'll have already been recorded and released and everything, but we're actually doing a special episode on Yusei Matsui, the creator of both Nero and Assassination Classroom, in celebration of his appearance at New York Comic Con, which, again, will have already happened, but by the time you're listening to this, but by the time this is out, that episode will be out. I'm actually planning on having Bomber D. Rufy on that one to talk about Nero, because I know he's kind of a fan of some of Matsui's works.
Oh,
he's even helped translated a few of them. So that's going to be fun. Please, go check that out. Even if you don't know much about Matsui and his works, maybe you'll learn something. I don't know. Maybe you'll find a new manga to read. But yeah, please go check that out at allcomic.com when that's out. And I guess last but not least, as for the podcast, you can visit the podcast. That's Life Lessons, the Gintama Manga Cast, at gintalifelessons.wordpress.com. You can also listen to us on Stitcher, or the Stitcher Smart Radio app, and we're also available on Player FM specifically. You can also follow us on Facebook.com, Twitter.com, and YouTube.com/GintaMangaCast. That's GintaMangacast, GintaMangacast. I'm really trying my best to put more recent episodes of the podcast on YouTube, so I really hope everybody appreciate those, because apparently you guys want to listen to podcasts on YouTube. It's none of my business. I mean, I prefer listening to on my super important iPhone on the podcast app. But I'm joking aside, I do want to make this podcast somewhat available on a few more platforms, and YouTube's kind of the first step in that. So again, I'm trying to do my best with that, but I'm trying to upload those the day after to maybe the week after the release of an episode, maybe on iTunes or whatnot. But you can also, like I said earlier, if you want to email us anything about Gintama or the podcast, you can email us at gintalifelessons@gmail.com. Or you can leave us feedback in our occasional threads on the Gintama subreddit at reddit.com/r/Gintama. I promise I'll try to do more of those with these future episodes, so you guys can leave your feedback and we'll read it on the show. But the most important thing, guys, is that you subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes. Maybe you won't, I don't know, but if you did, I would very much appreciate it. Do one, do all three, I don't care. Do what you want, it's your life. But that's pretty much it for this episode of the podcast. This has been episode 50 of Life Lessons, and we'll see you guys next time for episode 51. Bye, guys.
Bye.